The first debate of the semi-finals will be between Naparima Boys College, correct, and St. Mary's College. I'm going to say CIC, but I believe correct. Name is St. Mary's College, right? So these two will be facing off in the first debate of the semi-finals, with Naparima arguing in the affirmative on the proposition side, and St. Mary's College arguing on the opposition side. So I would now like to invite those two teams to join me on this stage, with the proposition team to my right and the opposition team to my left. So, arguing in the affirmative and representing Naparima Boys College, we have first speaker Saeed Ali, second speaker Adam Ramsahai, and third speaker, we hear from him, Dipanshu Kumar. Correct? And arguing in the negative and representing St. Mary's College, we have first speaker Tara Thomas, second speaker Hero Dash, and third speaker, Zaid Alexander. So, in the interest of fairness, as we did last week, we will ask the team that is not currently debating, so that would be Presentation College, Shimonas, to hold on to one debating rooms downstairs, so that we don't get any ideas, So now that we are ready to begin, I will turn you over to our debate moderator for the day, Mr. Babala, and I wish both teams, in fact, I wish all of you here today the best of luck. Oversight on my part, I forgot to mention the resolution being debated today. The resolution of the debate today is be it resolved that the law should be amended to allow for the regularization of persons who occupy state lands after 2014. Repeat that. Be it resolved that the law should be amended to allow for the regularization of persons who occupy state lands after 2014.
Good morning, all. All protocols up to. I'd like to introduce speaker number one, proposition.
Good morning, esteemed judges, distinguished guests, timekeeper, all members of the House, and of course, the Honorable Opposition. Today, my team and I on the proposition bench confidently stand before you and stand by the motion, be it resolved that the law should be amended to allow for the regularization of persons who occupy state lands after 2024. What is regularization, you may ask? Regularization, as defined in Section 2 of the State Land Regularization of Tenure Act, Chapter 5705, Act Number 25 of 1998, means the incremental physical upgrading of and provision of services to designated areas and land settlement areas, and the provision of leasehold title thereto. This means regularization has two components. One, the improvement of basic infrastructure and basic amenities such as paved roads, drainage, potable water, and electricity. And two, security of tenure, where the lot is surveyed and the deed of lease is granted. May I ask you all, what year are we in? 2024. We are dealing with a motion regarding persons from 2014 to now. That is 10 years of neglect. And that leads me to my first point. Around the globe right now, the environment is a major issue. Unregularized squatting areas lack oversight, and this comes with several environmental consequences. Water pollution, deforestation, improper waste disposal, which sometimes is not even the fault of the squatters because these areas lack the infrastructure, and this provides a hazard to them. Imagine that dealing with a person from 2014 to now, and there's still people that have used latrines in this modern day. All of these issues that face them because there's no regularization. By regularizing, the government can go into these areas and develop these areas as the law says. And once they can put in this infrastructure, such as pipes, potable water, and wastewater management, this will reduce the hazard that is faced by the squatters, as well as the areas in and around these squatting developments. And that leads to my second point. On the topic of development, economic development. When these areas are regularized, again, it means that we can set up infrastructure such as paved roads. All of these things will allow for the ease of setting up businesses in the area, and small businesses serve as a backbone to the economy, and it helps us in diversifying the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. Not only that, have we factored in the thousands of persons from 2014 to present living in unregularized areas that will soon have to pay property tax if they were regularized? Not all squatters are poor. The opposition may want to tell you that all of these persons live in impoverished communities, but according to several news articles, there are even squatters that exploit land for economic output. All of these persons can pay property tax and form a direct income stream to the government of Trinidad and Tobago. And lastly, my third point, which is the societal problems associated with the areas unregularized from 2014 to now. In Trinidad and Tobago, there's a stigma around squatters. In a newspaper article from December 2023, just last month, they spoke of areas in northeastern Sangre Grande where the neighboring communities blame squatters for spikes in crime. We saw this trend in several areas across Trinidad and Tobago, associating a spike in crime between 2014 to now with squatters with no evidence. By regularizing these areas, we can again have roads, have street lights, all these things make it easier for police to go in and do their job and reduce the criminal elements in this area for the safety of these squatters, as well as removing the stigma of crime from these areas. The thousands of persons occupying state land from 2014 to now deserve to be treated equally as everyone else. In our beautiful Trinidad and Tobago, where we say, hey, every creed and race find an equal place. Why from 2014 to now am I seeing people being treated unequally? In 2024, we need to be focusing on our development, which I have said from the beginning of my speech to now. As the father of our nation wanted, all that the late Honorable Dr. Eric Williams wanted for this nation was the development of each and every single citizen, and that includes squatters. As I close, I want to quote from an article by Newsday in 2020, where the chairman of the LSA himself, Mr. Osby Francis, agreed and said that the laws needed to be amended to further regularize these persons. Therefore, there is no opposition argument today, because the LSA themselves also believe that the law needs to be amended. I look forward to hearing what the opposition has to say, and I want to see if they plan on contradicting what the LSA themselves believe in. Thank you. worthy yet heavily misinformed opponents. Let us address the proposition at hand. The need to amend the law for the regularization of persons occupying state lands after 2014 in Trinidad and Tobago. This proposition suggests altering existing legislation to accommodate for such occupants. As the first opposition, my role is to counter the arguments presented by the proposition, where I will discuss the potential for land abuse, promotion of illegal squatting, and environmental challenges. Subsequently, my second speaker will discuss the fairness, efficiency, consequences, and financial burden of regularization of such law. Let us remember that being loud does not mean you are correct. It just means that you are being loud and throwing insults. Let us remember that you are just being loud and being loud by being wrong. The great and honorable Thomas Jefferson once said, "Change for the sake of change is not progress. It is a thoughtful and deliberate evolution of our laws that fortifies the foundation of justice." Jefferson's powerful statement suggests that the amendment of our laws that the proposed regularization should not be pursued recklessly but with careful consideration, similar to the approach taken by the proposition. Let the gravity of the situation actually sink in. Amendment, legislation, regularization. These words might sound alluring, ladies and gentlemen, but let's not get caught up in fancy language. The truth is, beneath all this, we're looking at a potential mess, a maze of unintended problems. The potential for land abuse within the regularization process raises valid concerns as individuals might intentionally occupy state lands with the anticipation of gaining legal recognition in the future. This situation could lead to a deliberate manipulation of our regularization process, thus undermining the integrity of the intended purpose. No, don't just take my minds, my can't happens, and my needs, ladies and gentlemen. Let's look at one out of many cases. In the Tide Bancroft case in Scotland 2016, a couple intentionally occupied state lands, thus causing the wrongful ownership and the lack of ownership to the rightful owners on several disputes. This real-life example highlights the case and why our legislation and laws should stay as it is. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a question. Are we not fed up with altering existing legislation for laws that can be easily rectified? The proposition is serving you dreams and rainbows on a silver platter, but I dare each and every one of you to eat out a candy and rainstorm. It might not be delightful, but good luck holding on to it in reality. Ladies and gentlemen, when addressing informal settlements, the focus should be on administering social housing initiatives and affordable housing programs that involve offered by the Land Settlement Agency themselves, where the LSA assists a low-income household, where it assists households that in dire need. So yes, I did reverse against the points for the LSA. Ladies and gentlemen, let us remember that the LSA that prioritizes existing laws helps to avoid unexpected problems and ensure a more organized and predictable approach. Lastly, the potential for abuse and the encouragement of legal squatting is not the only concern we face. Legalizing existing illegal occupation could also exacerbate environmental challenges, such as, which is included but not limited to, a strain on the legal system, compromised biodiversity, and heightened vulnerability to the natural ecosystem, such as flooding and landslides. In summary, we advocate for thoughtful and cautious discussion on this, ladies and gentlemen. The proposition Dreams and Rainbows might seem inciting, but a more lawful and cautious approach is better for the well-being of our country. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Inviting the second speaker of the proposition.
Good morning. We have been listening to the opposition with ears wide open, and we want to make it abundantly clear that we do not agree with what is being presented here this morning. Good morning, honorable adjudicators, timekeepers, chairpersons, my worthy opponents from St. Mary's College, and most importantly you, the members of this House. We, the proposition from Naparima College, stand in full support of the motion before us today, and we reject the erroneous claims of the opposition. Firstly, I was told about the potential for land abuse. The opposition claims that amending the law to allow for the regularization of occupants of state lands after 2014 would lead to the potential of land abuse. However, I want to bring your attention to an article dated July 11, 2020 by the Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Christopher Rowley. And in this article, he himself states that these laws are in place not to encourage squatting, but to limit it. And also, my Honorable First Speaker just mentioned that we intend to amend this law in a way that it will never happen again. There will be no other chance for this to happen. Moving on. In the LSA study guide, in the LSA study documents, we were also presented with a graph showing the proliferation of squatting. And we were able to see that not once, but actually twice after the regularization initiatives occurred, there was an actual decrease, a decrease in the number of squatting sites across the country. Now, I also want to, my opposition mentioned that we only want to amend laws, and why would we always want to amend laws? So what do we have a parliament for? That's all I have to say about that. Now moving on, the tenancy program and the opportunities provided by the LSA. So they might want to tell you about different programs, and one of those was the tenancy program that was actually implemented by Cabinet Minute number 289 of February 6, 2020 by the government. We want to make it abundantly clear that that is not amending the law. Is that amending the law? No. This is a government policy, and a government policy which actually only allows for the regularization of squatters up to 2014. So this isn't even arguing against our motion. We are talking about regularizing persons in occupation of state lands after 2014. Now, additionally, I heard my honorable opponent talk about the environmental concerns, but my first speaker said that regularization and regulating these squatter settlements will benefit the environment. We will now be able to regulate these areas. We will not be able to regulate these communities. Now, I also want to take this opportunity in time to add on to a point raised by my first speaker, and that is actually the cultural benefits that these sites hold. Honorable members, I want to draw your attention to an article in the UK Guardian. Thank you. To an article in the UK Guardian that states squatter communities can bring sources of political and cultural creativity to the region. Honorable members, that is why regularization must occur, so that we can keep these areas. Do you know how many squatters and squatter settlements we have in this country, especially those after 2014? Now imagine if we kept them. We want to keep them. We want them to be regularized. We want this to be preserved. And that, honorable members, is the facts of the argument. Now, I'd also like to take this opportunity in time to pay a special tribute to my pure mathematics teacher who is here with us this morning. And I did that, and I really want to thank him because he has never once bewildered me or baffled me as much as the opposition has baffled this entire house here this morning. We have seen a debate loaded with weak arguments, and that is why we know that we are on the right side of this motion. Environmental benefits, economic benefits, societal benefits far outweigh any point that the opposition could have brought forward here this morning. And honorable members, I end with every single confidence that you two, members of this most honorable house, do now support the motion before us today. I thank you.
Inviting the second speaker of the opposition.
Again, let us remember that being loud and throwing insults at your opponents does not equate to correctness. It just means that you are loud and wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed judges, respected members of the audience, and we the opponents. In our country, where every creed and race finds an equal place, it is imperative to underscore that this concept must be applied to the boundaries of legality. Upholding the law becomes a cornerstone for a society where everyone genuinely finds an equal place. Our commitment to legality not only fosters consistency and fairness, but also contributes to legal stability through legal alternatives. The burden on finances that the opposition state could potentially outweigh the amount of money gained in our economy. Contrary to beliefs, while generating revenue through regularization programs may seem appealing, it is crucial to outweigh the total money spent compared to the money gained. This burden will cause our society to fall in our finances, which is very detrimental. Let's take, for example, in Brazil, the city of Rio de Janeiro. They implemented a regularization program in order to combat the loss of legal recognition of informal settlements. This case exemplifies the potential strain on public finances, which again raises concerns about the economic feasibility of regularizing lands occupied after a certain date. Furthermore, we should recognize that trying to amend laws after post-2014 for land issues is like trying to glue together a puzzle piece to solve it. Efficiency in addressing land issues is a crucial aspect of adhering to existing legal channels. Legal processes are designed to provide a structural framework for handling disputes, ensuring a systematic approach that upholds the principles of justice rather than simply amending a law. Neglecting established settlements, neglecting established laws is a serious threat to our functioning society. Ladies and gentlemen, imagine a city where the laws were changed to allow illegal occupants after a certain date. In this situation, property developers, interpreting the changes liberally, initiated construction without adhering to the established zoning laws. This will cause confusion with law enforcement to distinguish between illegal and legal acts. Regularizing squatter settlements often uses significant financial resources for infrastructure, development, services, and legal processes. Prioritizing regularization for those with legal claims may be a more efficient allocation of limited resources. The dismissal of existing legal procedures presented challenges in the enforcing zoning regulations, ultimately jeopardizing the overall integrity of legal framework. Instances like this underscore the real-life consequences of neglecting established legal procedures. In closing, let me emphasize that our stance against amending the law to regularize post-2014 land occupations is not a callous disregard for the challenges many face. We stand in our commitment to creating a society where everyone, regardless of their background, has a proper chance at life. Our shared vision is one of fairness, equity, and long-term stability. Together, we can pave the way for the improvement of our society and nation of Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you all for listening.
Inviting the opposition to present their summary.
Ladies and gentlemen, my mother always used to tell me, son, don't bite off more than you can chew. And perhaps in the context of legality, this emphasizes keeping within our current legal boundaries. Our proposition today, through their innocence and enthusiasm, have deviated and propagated our minds into believing that this is a light-hearted matter. But ladies and gentlemen, I, Zaya Alexander, I'm here to regurgitate and reinforce the points made by my two previous speakers. Our main worry revolves around the potential for abuse. There's a legitimate fear that individuals may deliberately occupy state lands in hopes of gaining legal recognition in the future. And this, my friends, raises both legal and ethical questions regarding the integrity and the potential for exploitation of the system. Secondly, if laws are amended for individuals who occupy state lands beyond a certain date, this could establish a precedent that encourages more people to engage in illegal occupation, which, might I add, exacerbates environmental concerns, especially in areas initially designated for residential use. Legal processes ensure a structured approach to conflicts, upholding justice and preventing unintended consequences. Prioritizing adherence implies consistency for all inland matters, and in addition, regularizing squatters might be viewed as unfair, potentially discouraging legal procedures and fostering unequal treatment. To conclude, let me draw your attention back to the initial quote by the great and honorable Thomas Jefferson, as he once said, and I quote, "Change for the sake of change is not progress. It is a thoughtful and deliberate evolution of our laws that fortifies the foundation of justice." End quote. As we navigate through this complex issue, let us carefully weigh these considerations to ensure a balanced and justified resolution. Thank you.
Inviting the proposition to present their summary.
Oh, what is them doing? Just showing an accurate representation of how the opposition just picked their sources and quoting foreigners, just picking and choosing like if it's Alibaba over here. Because how are these sources relevant to Trinidad and Tobago? After this debate today, I would like for a new bill to be passed that the arguments of the opposition not be regularized, occupying space in your minds given how despicable their arguments were. Good morning, respected judges, honorable chairpersons, accurate timekeepers, my worthy opponents, and all members of the House. It's the Panchu again, member of the proposition, strongly for the aforementioned motion. So, why is the opposition endangering our fellow citizens in these environmentally poor conditions, where they are constantly breathing polluted air and consuming food such as fishes that are marinating in a body full of waste and chemicals? Ugh. Do you know why they're suffering? Because they are not regulated by the state. In our day-to-day lives, you all in the audience don't know what it's like to appreciate the littlest of things, such as clean, breathable air. Or an area where you can freely swim in, appreciating the nature around you without thinking twice of what diseases you might be exposed to. Last week, I was eager to squat. This week, it don't even look like it have a habitable land to squat on. The quote my first proposition speaker stated from the LSA's chairman was from 2020, while my opposition didn't even state when the LSA stated their point. I don't know. It could be from 2014, or it could be from when Columbus discovered Trinidad. Concerning the precedent that their summary speaker is talking about, as my second speaker stated, the argument of land abuse is invalid. We have, as the proposition, this would never happen again. Our honorable Prime Minister has even made it clean that these laws do not encourage squatting, but limits it. Show the reduction of squatters' sites after regularization has occurred. We have a graph showing that the reduction of squatter sites have occurred. My first proposition I will quote from my first proposition speaker. Here every creed and race find an equal place. But clearly, our opposition does not want that. Thank you.
Well, that was entertaining, that's for sure. All right, I'd like to thank Naparima Boys College and St. Mary's College for an excellent debate. I don't envy the judges at this point because we had a couple contrasting styles, so I guess it's which one is preferred by our judges today. That will be the one that wins out. So again, thank you guys, and you guys can join your colleagues in the audience. We will have a brief 5-minute intermission while we gather the second team for our second debate of the semifinals. Okay, folks, we are ready to start our second debate between Bishop's High School Tobago and Presentation College Chaguanas. This promises to be an exhilarating one because I'll just clue you in on something. I don't want to fill you guys' head too much, but you guys scored the highest last week. So everybody's looking towards you guys now to perform in the semifinals. That, of course, doesn't mean that you all can't step up your game as well. All right? So we have for the proposition, I'm gonna get it right this time. So Hyla Makul, first speaker, Clavia Simpson, second speaker, and Tayshawn Joseph. Nice. And arguing in the opposition from Prez Chaguanas, we have Ashish Basdeo, first speaker, Samir Hussain, second speaker, and third speaker, Khalil Cooper. All right? So don't forget, the resolution being debated is be it resolved that the law should be amended to allow for the regularization of persons who occupied state lands after 2014. So I will now turn you over to our debate moderator, Mr. Babulal. I call you to the floor.
Good morning, all again. Inviting the first speaker from the proposition.
The law is made to uphold a safe and comfortable environment for citizens in a nation. When the law no longer fulfills its purpose, it needs to be amended. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed judges, my respected opponents, good morning. My colleagues and I are proposing the resolution, be it resolved that the law should be amended to allow for the regularization of people who occupy state lands after 2014. I am Sohaila, and I will be providing you with the health and social benefits of our proposition. My colleague Clavia would provide you with the shortfalls of previous programs, while my other colleague Tayshawn would present an accurate summary of today's debate. Regularization is defined by Oxford Dictionary as means to make a situation that already exists legal and or official. We propose giving people who occupy state lands between June 15, 2014 to January 1st, 2024 legal access to state lands for residential purposes. These squatters belong to the subset of society who did not benefit from either the certificate of comfort or the Land Settlement Agency Tenancy Program, which only benefited those who occupied designated sites and land settlement areas before June 14, 2014. They also did not benefit from state provisions such as the Housing Development Corporation due to its inefficiency and lengthy waiting periods. The State Lands Regulation of Tenure Act 25 of 1998 acknowledges that the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago is committed to the goal of improving living conditions so that everyone in society would have access to adequate and affordable shelter with security of tenure. This provision is not only about providing citizens with comfortable living spaces, but is about ensuring their stability in these communities. According to the Handbook of Social Inclusion written by Halmer, Holtz, and Jacobs, increasing research shows that secure, decent, and affordable housing is a necessary foundation for individuals to participate in economic, social, and cultural life. With this legal recognition from the government, citizens not only gain stability in housing, but they can now focus on other aspects of their lives, such as gainful employment or furthering their education. Providing our nation's citizens with further legal housing options ensures that the country's economy would improve, as workers would now be qualified to serve the country in its workforce. The improvement would not only be for squatters, it would also be for citizens, because illegal squatting not only impacts the persons involved, but the wider society. For instance, as we know, squatters don't usually stay in designated areas for residential use, and they may build near industrial parks, and that act alone may result in numerous negative impacts. Pollutions from the park can result in respiratory illnesses, cancers, and even asthma. By granting these squatters legal tenure, issues such as overcrowding, no access to basic amenities such as clean drinking water and electricity, and vulnerability to infectious diseases would be significantly reduced by placing them in safe, clean residential areas. As I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, I must recapitulate. The proposed amendment to allow for the regularization of individuals who occupy state lands after 2014 is not merely just a legal adjustment. It is a vital step towards enhancing the lives of the marginalized. We can contribute to building a nation where everyone has access to comfortable and stable shelter. It is an opportunity to foster a better society where people are granted a fair chance at a better life. I thank you for your time.
Inviting the first speaker from the opposition.
Breaking news. According to the proposition, it is vital and humane to allow people to live and to allow people to have comfort and stability. But according to Dr. the Honorable Keith Rowley, a certificate of comfort is not a facility available for any bold-faced person who wants to go squat on a piece of land. Pleasant good morning to my most worthy opponents, members of the audience, most esteemed judges, moderator, timekeeper, and members of the audience. Today, we, the opposition, are here to refute the claims made by the proposition regarding the motion, be it resolved that the law should be amended to allow for the regularization of persons who occupied state lands after 2014. Members of the audience, this amendment violates the rule of law principle in Trinidad and Tobago It leads to chaos and injustice. It does not act in the best interest of citizens, and it sets completely unfair precedents and injustice to members of society. First and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, our legal system in Trinidad and Tobago is based on the rule of law principle, which according to the American Bar Association is a set of principles or ideals for ensuring an orderly and just society, where no one is above the law, everyone is treated equally under the law, everyone is held accountable to these same laws, and there are clear and fair processes for enforcing laws. Members of the audience, when the proposition suggests an amendment of regularizing all of the post-2014 squatters, it sends a message. It sends a message that it is okay for us as a society to legitimize illegal practices like squatting. So from now on, all year, we're gonna break class and play all fours in school. If I don't have any money, I'm gonna tax Form 1s. If I have no food, I'm gonna thief from the cafeteria. And I have no shelter, so I'm gonna sleep in the staff room. Because what the proposition is saying is that it is okay to take whatever we want and to take what rightfully belongs to us, since we all have human needs and rights. Furthermore, ladies and gentlemen, we need to remember that many of the former initiatives that were mentioned to help curb squatting and to help allow for regularization all had limits and regulations. But what happens when we remove these limits, when we remove these regulations? When we give an inch, people take an acre. They take a hotel, they take a bar, and they take a grocery, as evident by the Happy Corner Hotel and Bar along the old train line in Kings Wharf, San Fernando. Imagine the chaos that this amendment would bring, with people running and grabbing land, squatting structures and sites being set up all over the country, improper drainage, and illegal connections being made left, right, and center. My opposition would have also mentioned that we need to amend this law to provide for the marginalized people of society. Now, yes, we totally agree. But who exactly does this marginalized people of society include? Does it even include foreign migrants that come? Because they can easily come here, squat, and then get regularized. Let me rephrase that, ladies and gentlemen. An influx of foreign migrants coming into the country and setting up shop without any consequences. Let me remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that is how we were colonized. And the proposition would have also mentioned that there needs to be more housing availabilities. However, there are housing options that are made affordable to citizens. Options like HDC, government grants, the government-aided self-help program. How is it possible that we could suggest squatting, an illegal practice, going somewhere and taking something without anybody noticing? How can we suggest that as a measure to curb the housing crisis? What message does that send to our population, ladies and gentlemen? Furthermore, I'd like to present you all with a few statistics. 2013, 108. 2018 to 19, 110. And 2013, 105. What do all of these have in common, ladies and gentlemen? In 2013, there was a local election. In 2020, there were general elections. And just before another local election, in 2023, 105 certificates of comfort were distributed. Now, we do agree that all of these regularization incentives do help squatters. They can get utilities and they can get registered addresses. But I don't know about you, but I could certainly think of one advantage of having a formal registered address in an election year. Lastly, ladies and gentlemen, before I leave, I would like to also touch on the fact that we need to consider the question in terms of the precedents that such an amendment would set to the people of this country. We need to remember that when laws like the State Lands Act were put into place, there were limitations and restrictions that people had to follow. Was it fair to all of those people who were locked up previously before marijuana was decriminalized? No, it wasn't. Similarly, as my opposition would have said, there were many people who were not covered under the Certificate of Comfort program. Is it fair to them that they couldn't get their COC, so they had to find what other ways possible to get a house, to get utilities, and now we're suddenly making squatting available for all? Is it fair to them and what they had to go through? Let's also remember that allowing regularization may undermine the land allocation process, and it undermines the integrity of the land allocation process. It disadvantages those who have followed the legal processes previously to obtain land, and it creates a perception of unfairness. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce the second speaker of the proposition, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, the opposition made some very jarring points, and it reveals to me not only the amount of brain cells they used while listening to my colleague, but also the amount of sympathy they have for the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. Is it that when they go back to their stable homes that they just see these citizens as statistics on a piece of paper, or even worse, potential law-breaking citizens? But thank God for the proposition who brought forward this motion to cater for the thousands of citizens who may not be as well off as we are. And those citizens are staying on land that people like you and I, people that look like you and I, couldn't have a mere 100 years ago under colonial rule. But you see, the Land Settlement Agency, or the LSA, reported 60,000 families are on state lands that are 52% of the 5,126 square kilometers. And you see, the government executed programs such as the Susu Land model, with 5,000 parcels of land being distributed and 1,000 homes, and acts such as the State Land Act number 25 of 1998 that were implemented to provide the establishment of land settlements to areas that need it. And programs such as the LSA and the HDC were all made to mitigate the housing situation, but unfortunately, we all know that some of these programs have had some shortfalls. You see, an article in the Guardian newspaper reported that past Housing Minister Penelope Beckles was speaking on the shortfalls of the HDC, and she stated, "The projects such as the HDC were not maintained well enough and honestly reflected on the deficiencies of the state housing programs." This article was in 2014. That means that was 10 years of people trying to find legal shelter for their families. Legal shelter for their families. And they did not get it. 10 years? Really? And not to say that those people who actually got it, they were not targeting the right people, and hence those people who obtained from the HDC, not all of them were as in need as they really should be. But the proposition brought forward this solution by bringing this motion before you. And in accordance with the LSA's vision of providing security and tenure to squatters in accordance to the State Land Act 25 of 1998, it aims to provide shelter for all citizens. And this process of regularization, we suggest, is by providing persons occupying state lands, whether legally or illegally, with deeds of lease. Let me correct my opponents one time. It's deeds of lease, not deeds of comfort. Very different. Because with deeds of lease, they will be entitled to land no larger than 5,000 square feet, and this land that they are on must be in residential areas. And the pre-existing structures that they are on, they must be up to town and country planning code, and these deeds of lease will be provided for their regularization and legal tenure. However, it gives the government the full right to repossess the land with due cause, such as breaking terms of the lease. But outside of that, the occupants form a beautiful legal ownership of this land, but they will not be able to sell it or trade it. And the approval and legal recognition of these lands provide a safe space with heavy government presence, with security, safety, and health for our citizens. And persons on pre-existing structures that may not be in residential areas will be relocated to the residential areas that we have approved, and they will be provided with starter homes, maybe with 2 bedrooms and 1 bath, but this will adjust depending on the family size, and it will only be given to those who meet the criteria of being severely in need. And the purpose of this amendment is to improve the standard of living of people on state lands. It does not cater to people living on private lands, nor does it cater or encourage squatting, as it tends to a specific period between 2014 to 2024 January 1st. You see, what this amendment does, it simply ensures that all citizens in need are compensated for the previous shortfalls of the government, and it improves the standard of living, resulting in a more developed society for all. And my team and I, we do acknowledge the strain that it could put to the already overworked LSA. And as such, we propose that personnel and resources be made available to efficiently and effectively do what is right for our citizens, because at the end of the day, I thank you.
Inviting the second speaker of the opposition.
Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All protocols observed. Members of the House, in today's newscast, we shall be looking at the fine line between individual interests and the greater good. Ladies and gentlemen, let us dive into this forecast of environmental and economic implications. Now, if my opponents were a news headline, it would be titled, "Bold Claims, Thin Evidence, the Thrilling Saga of Speculation." But fear not, ladies and gentlemen, we are here to shield you from the misinformation that the proposition has presented. They started off their argument by mentioning HDC programs and housing solutions. But ladies and gentlemen, this debate is not about housing solutions. The motion clearly states it is about the amendment of laws. So ladies and gentlemen, according to the Ministry of Housing, squatting has severe environmental impacts, such as watershed degradation, deforestation, water pollution, and many more. And this is due to the removal of vegetation cover to erect structures, the pollution of water courses, and it also includes poor waste disposal methods, which can lead to increased flooding and many more consequences. One example of these environmental impacts can be seen in Montego Bay, Jamaica, where a study conducted by Bruce Ferguson highlighted that improper water sources, drinking water, appeared to be the single greatest environmental impact due to squatting. Ladies and gentlemen, amending the law for state-owned lands will only encourage and expedite these detrimental effects. And as the proposition implied, if we could do what we want, it's a free-for-all. The consequences will not just be felt for squatters, but for us all, ladies and gentlemen. Now, our opponents talked about giving these people these lands, amending the laws to increase the standard of living. But ladies and gentlemen, basic economics shows us that standard of living can be increased. It takes much more than just giving away land. It takes increases in GDP, imports, exports, so many different things, ladies and gentlemen. It is a domino effect. So do not be misled by their fallacies and misinformation. Amending the law to regularize recent state land occupants will disrupt urban planning and resource allocation. Embracing these recent encroachments without due consideration will lead to inefficient resource distribution and hamper long-term development plans. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said at the beginning of this debate, we need to keep in mind the line between individual interests and the greater good. The very mandate of the Land Settlement Agency states that it is to provide establishment for land settlements that would include more schools, hospitals, community centers, the list goes on and on, ladies and gentlemen. Giving these lands to squatters has a great opportunity cost that we as a country cannot afford to have. Picture this, ladies and gentlemen. You just spent your life savings to purchase a piece of land, build your house, and in a nearby vacant lot, squatters emerge, an entire squatting community. This disrupts your beautiful view. The value of your house, of your land, actually depreciates due to squatting. In a study conducted by the International Journal of Geoinformation, they examined the relationship between squatter settlement growth and the housing market, and they found that squatters decrease the value of the housing market. And you may be saying to yourself, ladies and gentlemen, well, isn't that a good thing? Cheaper houses for all. But I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, would you buy a house if you can just go to the government land down the road, sit on it for a couple of years and just get it for free? Who's going to buy houses when you could just grab land like free hop spread? My audience, this affects us all. It is a domino effect. So in conclusion, we need to preserve our economic stability by avoiding devaluation associated with squatting and safeguard our environment from the risks of unregulated urbanization. Rejecting this motion is a commitment to fairness, economic resilience, and environmental responsibility, something that the proposition has failed to do. I thank you.
Inviting the opposition to present their summary.
Breaking news. Making major economic decisions can affect the entire economy. The proposition today has argued against the very rules by which we are governed, and they deny that every citizen should be held to the same legal standard. How will the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago fare? Well, the opposition has laid it out as clear as day, ladies and gentlemen. As stated by our Speaker Ashish, the country will erupt out of a volcano of persons rushing to seize land and increase our already high ratio of squatters to legal tenants. Also, this raises unease to persons who were apprehended prior to the amending of these laws. Our second speaker, Samir, would have raised the question, where is the government getting space to facilitate this influx of squatters? Would they not resort to our green lands, further harming the environment? On top of this, they would have to use land that could be occupied by schools, community centers, health facilities, and sporting complexes. The list goes on, ladies and gentlemen. Furthermore, amending this law can cause land to depreciate. Folks, this is not supposed to happen. In fact, when was the last time we've seen land depreciating in Trinidad and Tobago? Anybody? I didn't think so. In conclusion, we should not amend the law to regularize those occupying state land after 2014 because this would disregard our mere legal principles. It would ignore our citizens and ultimately it will detriment our economy. I thank you.
Inviting the proposition to present their summary.
A pleasant morning to all. Please allow me to remind you of the motion put forth today. Be it resolved that the law should be amended to allow for regularization of persons who occupied state land after 2014. As I conclude this debate with a summary that even a primary school student should comprehend, I hope that my opposition can pay attention and understand that we proposed an amendment to the law, which in fact would benefit the citizens of this country, which you implied this motion does not benefit them. So, we are saying to you, fingers on your lips and listen. We, the proposition, endorse this motion because of the social impacts and health benefits it would have to the citizens. We also endorse this motion as we recognize the shortfalls of previous programs put in place to deal with the issue at hand. We have proposed the regularization of persons occupying state lands between the period June 15, 2014 to January 1st, 2024, to receive a deed of lease allowing them to occupy state land no more than 5,000 square feet per household. And once the land is in an approved area and there are pre-existing structures that meet town and country planning building codes, these deeds of lease will be provided for regularization and legal tenure. These persons will also not be allowed to sell or trade these lands once given the deed to show their ownership. This solution is also not solely about fixing a housing issue, but also creating stability for our citizens and improving our country's economy. We would also be safeguarding our citizens from health complications by ensuring that they are living in approved residential areas with access to basic amenities such as water and electricity. This will be beneficial to the targeted audience as they will have permanent starter homes or deeds of lease for the land in which they will have legal ownership, giving them some sense of security and overall improvement of their standard of living. Therefore, as my colleague Sohail has mentioned, if the law does not accommodate for the safety and the comfort of all citizens, then we must be the ones to push for this amendment. I thank you.
That was as promised, you guys delivered, both of you all. I think we should give them a round of applause again. I mean, Tobago didn't just come here to debate, they proposed policy. They came and defined what the amendment to the legislation should be, Boy, oh boy, all they had all their work cut out for it. All right, so we are going to have a short break, during which students who may not have had a chance to eat before, you can have a bite to eat. Also, we have some gentlemen here with cameras who would like to chat with some of the students, the debaters, so you could take this opportunity to do that as well. And we will be back up here in approximately, I want to say half an hour, so at about, let's say 12, to have the announcement of the results. So thank you to Presentation and Tobago High School once more, and we'll have the results in just a bit. All right, so I know it's not 12 yet, but we have all the results in place, and I believe everyone has had a bite to eat. So we will move forward with the proceedings to announce the results. Okay, so before we move forward, a few pointers. One of the things that I noticed this round was that, and this was particularly relevant in the first debate, I feel as if a lot of the debaters left a lot on the table in terms of utilizing the time at their disposal. Obviously, you don't want the bell going off on you while you're making a substantive point, but at the same time, you don't want to have a minute and a half that could have been used to drive home your point just go to waste. So be mindful of that. As I said, all of you all will be here, well, not here, but you all will be present at the final round. So this is some constructive criticism that you can utilize to improve your performances come that day. The other thing that I think we should be mindful of is that we can do a little bit more to anticipate the arguments of the opposition team. And what I mean by that is, I'll explain by way of example. So today, we were debating whether they should amend the law to allow for regularization for people after 2014. Now, if I were on the proposition, I know the very first thing that the opposition would say was, well, obviously that, well, two things, rule of law, and secondly, it would lead to land grabbing, right? If you, in the same way that if you settle illegal immigrants, you just encourage more illegal immigrants to journey over your borders. The same thing with squatting. You regularize some squatters. The thinking would be, the argument would be that that would just encourage people. Now, you all did anticipate it, but I don't think many people on the opposition team did, or the proposition team, sorry, did enough to refute it distinctively, right? I was expecting some of you all to come with studies saying, okay, there's no correlation between regularization, maybe not from Trinidad and Tobago, I know that'd be difficult to find, but from foreign countries saying, listen, in those countries, they improved regularization, but there was no correlation between that and increased squatting, and then the opposition side could have picked apart those studies or maybe said that if you redefine squatting, obviously you won't see a correlation. So all of these things I was expecting to see a little bit more of. Now, this is not to say, as I said, the overall quality was excellent, but you all will be here again next week. And so I say these things so that you can bear it in mind to prepare yourselves for next week. All right? But again, congratulations on the quality of the performances. So now to what everyone has been waiting for, the announcement of the results. Now, today I mentioned that in the rules, last week we didn't make something clear, and so this time I just want to anticipate that. I did some anticipation myself and anticipated what might be an argument in the case of a tie, but I did describe it as a very unlikely thing to occur, an unlikely occurrence. And just to slap me in the face, as soon as I say that, we have a tie. So, in the first debate, there was a tie between St. Mary's and NAPS. Both teams scoring 233 points, right? Now, as I indicated, in the event of a tie, the tie would be broken by way of a vote between the three judges. And in this instance, the judges chose St. Mary's. So congratulations to St. Mary's. And the second debate, this one promised to be the blockbuster one, and as I said, it did not under-deliver between Presentation College Chaguanas and Bishops. We did not have a tie in this instance, so there was a disparity between the points, and we had Presentation scoring 233 points, and Bishops Tobago scoring 248 points. So that means the finals will be a showdown between Bishops Tobago, Bishops High School Tobago, and St. Mary's College, well, of course in Trinidad. And the third place playoff would be between Naparima Boys College and Presentation Chaguanas. Guys, those from Pres and from NAPS, I know that you guys would be inclined to feel a bit disappointed, and that's natural, but trust me, you presented yourselves well today. You represented yourselves and your schools immaculately, and you should be proud of that. And you have a chance to come next week, Wednesday, and have bragging rights and say, well, hey, listen, at least I come to it, as opposed to, the other side. All right, so we look forward to seeing you guys next week. As I said, it will be at the Government Campus Plaza Auditorium. You'll all, and I should mention as well, for those of you who would like to see your performances, we are still working on the stream for, the footage of the first one, uploading it to our Facebook page and our YouTube page. That is the Land Settlement Agencies. However, it's up on YouTube what's the name of the page again? Yeah, Pure Players Production. Those are the videographers that you see here today. You can go to that with respect to the quarterfinals. You can find the entire of the quarterfinals there. We will be posting we tried to live stream it, but we had some technical difficulties, so we will be posting it on YouTube at the same Pure Players YouTube channel at 3 o'clock this afternoon. And you can also visit the Land Settlement Agency's Facebook page where you can find the link. So if you can't remember the name of the videographer, you just can go to the Land Settlement Agency's Facebook page and you can see footage of your performances today. So maybe you could even do some self-critiquing in anticipation of next week. So thank you all for coming out, and we'll see you all next week. Oh, and I've just been reminded that there are lunches available downstairs. You can have it to go because we'll be closing up the facility soon, so you can take it on your way out. And again, see you guys next week.